This is not my bike. This is one of my buddies are lending it to me to use for right now. So it's boat stock. I mean, there's really nothing done to it, but.
Wait, what was it? ThoughTaken. Yeah. That's why I was like, yo, nice to meet you, bro.
Yeah, of course, brother. Pleasure.
Can I get a picture?
Yeah, sure. You want me to take my helmet off?
That's crazy.
How we managed to end up in this situation and how this happened, I literally have no idea or concept of how we got here, but out of a random act of kindness, we now have a BMW S1000RR out here. And what is already hitting me is the debate of if a $25,000 motorcycle is actually worth it or not. That's the question that I want to answer today.
So this is the BMW S1000RR, dude. What you get in the M package, you are getting these upgraded billet parts. You get a little bit nicer levers than the ones that my BMW S1000 had. Feel a little bit more like girthy, a little bit easier to pull. You also get these upgraded brakes, and to be honest with you, I don't really notice a difference between these M brakes and the regular like Nissan brakes that my S1000 had. I'm pretty sure that they're the exact same brake. Steel braided brake lines and all, like both mine and this one had steel braided brake lines. It literally just feels like they painted it blue and put M on it, and it's like the exact same system. But regardless, I feel like the lever does a lot more for the braking system than painting the calipers. But also getting these M carbon wheels, which mine had forged wheels, which I thought were pretty light in general. These are way lighter, so even though this bike is fully stock, still has that giant heavy exhaust on it. Mine had a full titanium system. This bike still feels easier to toss between your legs while it's moving, at least because of those wheels. Those wheels absolutely make a difference. While those wheels are a good idea while out here in California, back in Cleveland, they may not be as good of an idea. If you smack a pothole, those wheels are probably going to break and not be a good time. Another thing you get on the M edition of the S1000 is that gold M endurance chain. I don't really have a lot of faith in BMW's endurance chain because I had an S1000 with the endurance chain on it, and I still completely wore out my chain within 6,000 miles. So your mileage may vary depending on how you ride the bike. I rode my S1000 extremely hard. Like, I really stress tested that bike, so that's why probably my chain wore out within 6,000 miles. But just keep that in mind. Even though you're paying more money to get the endurance chain, just realize it's still probably not going to last that much longer than a regular chain. Don't fall for marketing, people. Listen to me. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat things because I'm not bought and paid for. Now this is what the S1000 is, dare I say, meant to do, but not really, and I'm going to get into that. These types of roads are, I would dare I say, too small for this bike. Now I'm fortunate that the BMW S1000RR is a very smooth motorcycle. It can handle these roads fine. You know, it's not gonna be bad for it, but now keep in mind these are also public roads, so I can't like really push it to its limits. I don't know what's gonna be around every single blind corner. Plus, I don't know this area that well. There are little driveways here and there, and look, there's a dude walking on the road. I'm not trying to put anybody in danger, so I'm going to try to keep it like at a reasonable limit here. And that is exactly the crux of owning a 1000cc bike and riding it on the street. Yes, there are roads on the street that you can push these bikes to their limits safely, somewhat safely. It's still never going to be quite like the track where you have unlimited access to do whatever you want, but woo! Yeah, baby, that was bad shifting in the corner. Don't do that. Yeah. It's so easy for this bike to get away from me because it's a stock exhaust. I can't hear it at all when I'm riding. All I hear is wind noise, dude. I just feel the vibration from the motor, and that's the only feedback I get. I cannot hear this bike over the sound of the wind and my own voice. I don't have to shift if I don't want to. I could just stay in third or fourth and just, you know, casually cruise through this. And the crux of that is, I think I would have to time myself, but I really think that I'm faster through these roads on my Supermoto than I would be on a bike like this. Yeah, this bike flicks over super easily because of those carbon wheels. I mean, this thing feels like a 600 while it's moving, at least. At a standstill, it can feel a little bit hefty, but with those carbon wheels, there's so little rotational mass, you can just throw it back and forth. Yeah, baby. There's just no way a non-performance car can keep up with this bike through corners. So yes, while this bike does make a lot more horsepower than my Supermoto, I still think that I would be faster through roads like this on my Supermoto. Don't forget, it also has way more suspension travel, so if I hit a bump or something, it's going to disrupt the suspension less than if I hit a bump on this bike, which has very little suspension travel. So if I smack a pothole or something, it's going to disrupt the entire chassis of the bike, and it's going to risk me slamming into something like that guardrail. My Supermoto has Brembo brakes, by the way. It has better brakes than this bike as well, even though it's a cheaper bike. That's not to say the brakes on this bike are bad. It's just something that when you stomp on them a little bit, there's a little bit of unsureness with the brakes. They're like still really good brakes, don't get me wrong. Like the Yamaha R1 has way worse brakes than the S1000, but in my experience, Brembos are always going to be better than Nissans. It's just, that's what it is. This, while it's not bad, I feel like I'm constantly hitting ABS quicker on this bike than I am on my Ducati. And that's another thing, tire compound. My Ducati came with way better tires from the factory than this bike as well, so that's another thing to keep in mind. Majority of the money that you're spending on this bike is going to go towards the research and development costs of all the technology, which usually I just turn that technology off anyway. Hey, look at that brake hold. I'm not touching the brake, and it just completely holds me in place. It's all of these like little technology pieces is what you're majority paying the money for, which is not a bad thing. Somebody who likes technology, I used to be one of those people. I used to like having a lot of technology on my motorcycle. It made me feel safer when I was learning the limits of these 1000cc bikes, because they can be quite intimidating. This bike in particular, stock, has a really bad dead spot. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this by this point. Like if you've watched videos on the S1000, like just watch full throttle, like nothing, just nothing, dude. Nothing. There it is. Like it takes so long for it to hit the power band. It's crazy. Nothing. And there it goes. Like it takes so long for it to pick up. It's crazy. Not until you're already breaking speed limits, that's when it starts to hit. Like, come on, bro. Meanwhile, you pop it in fifth and watch. You get all the power. Like you are faster in fifth gear than you are in second. You just can't, bro. I don't get how you can fucking pop these up. So when you're paying $25,000 for a motorcycle, you are getting a lot of extra amenities, one of which is going to be cruise control. Another is going to be this little SOS button that BMW throws on a lot of their newer bikes, which can be a good thing depending on where you're riding. If you ride by yourself a lot of the times, then if you crash, that'll automatically call 911 for you, and it'll tell the dispatcher where you are, so that way they know where to find your lifeless body. They also have this thing that I really want to get into called heated grips. Having heated grips on a motorcycle literally can extend your rides to the point that, like, dude, I've been riding around here. Oh, hello. Transalp, nice. I have been riding around California. It is winter, by the way, so like, yes, winter in SoCal is not going to be like winter in Ohio. It's still very much rideable. So like, I'm not trying to sound like a complainer here, but it does get a little bit cold at night. It's dipping down into the 40s, mid 40s. I've been riding around in like 45 degree temperatures. Yeah, it's better than 30 degrees, but it's still not comfortable. It's 45 degrees is not comfortable enough for a joyride. When I get home, my hands have been icicles. But now, since I have this bike with heated grips, 45 degrees is no problem. Dude, what is going on at this gas station, bro? I just pull up here. I'm like, I clearly need gas, but like, why is there 15 million people here? Bro, you guys in California are built different, let me tell you. You guys are paying $4 for unleaded regular 87. That sucks. I guess as opposed to leaded gasoline, though, I can't imagine spending $100 to fill up your car. That's just Meanwhile, I only spend $10. And the crux of that is that will probably disappear within like the next week. But yeah, everyone thinks that when they buy a motorcycle, you're going to be saving a ton on gas. You're not going to be saving a ton on gas. Yeah, it's cheaper to fill up. So the numbers, they look smaller. But the thing is, I have already filled up like 3 times since I got this motorcycle yesterday. So yeah, I've probably spent $30 in gas in the same amount of time that you would probably spend less in a car. I mean, I could probably get better gas mileage on this bike if I rode it like a normal person, but God knows I can't do that. You're not getting on a motorcycle to drive like a grandma, bro. Like, if you say that, you're just lying to yourself and everybody else around you.
Whoa! No way he's getting it, bro. I can't believe I just saw that. That's crazy in a blind corner, dude. If there was a motorcycle coming around that corner, he would have died. Do you think a $25,000 motorcycle is going to be worth it? It's honestly going to come down to you and your personal opinion. Can this bike do things that other bikes cannot? Yes. Factory heated grips on a motorcycle is very rare. And yes, you can just get like a ZX-10 and put factory heated grips on those. The thing is, it's never going to be as clean as the setup that BMW has on theirs and Ducati has on theirs. We're still a few generations away before all these sport bikes just have heated grips and navigation systems and all that. So while you are paying a little bit of extra money for a motorcycle like this, you are getting a few features that you're not going to get on any other bike in this market. If all of these little things are worth it to you, like the heated grips to make you ride longer, or the carbon wheels that make the bike easier in the twisties, or if you decide you want to pay a little bit of extra money for something like a V4 that has a little bit more character, or you're just paying for a completely different experience through a different engine configuration. Again, these are all things that you're gonna have to decide if they're worth it to you. But do I think that you can also get a very similar experience, 99% of the experience of this bike out of a bike that's much cheaper, like my Supermoto? Absolutely. You don't need to spend this much money on a motorcycle to have fun. There are just little extra things that this bike has that makes your ride a little bit nicer. And I promise you, bro, as someone who dreamed about a bike like this for the longest time, time. All of that feeling that you have over the sensation of wanting this bike over like a regular Japanese bike, it's just pure FOMO. You're not getting $15,000 more of an experience out of this bike than a cheaper bike. So if you're money conscious, I say just save your money and get like a Gixxer 1000 for like 13 grand off at Marketplace. You're going to be a much happier person in the long run. But if you're like me and have a lot of extra money to spend on motorcycles because this is your passion and you're willing to pay a little bit extra for those extra amenities, then yeah, bro, go ahead and spend the extra money and get something that is worth it to you.
And so I just want people to understand, yeah, like expensive motorcycles like this do exist. And it's really cool that like they are somewhat attainable for most people. I just have the interest of like trying to quell people's expectations because I know I was a little bit disappointed when I bought my first BMW S1000RR. I spent a lot of money on mine only for it to be a marginal upgrade over what is essentially already existing Japanese bikes that are a lot cheaper. Although I will say after riding this bike a little bit, I do miss it, bro. I do really miss having the heated grips. The heated grips are a godsend. You do notice all the extra little amenities when riding this bike around. But I just want you guys to make educated decisions before going out and buying a very expensive motorcycle. When to be honest with you, you might be just as happy, depending on how enthusiastic you are about motorcycles, you might be just as happy with like a Gixxer 1000 or a ZX10 or something like that. Promise you, I'm just looking out for you guys and I want you guys to make the best decisions possible because I make bad ones.
So before we end today's video about these two fine motor vehicles, I just want to go over one last little topic, and that is quality about these two bikes. Now I know this isn't necessarily a fair comparison. A more fair comparison would be the Ducati V4 versus the S1000RR. But since we were talking about a cheaper motorcycle versus a much more expensive motorcycle, I figured it would just be fair. Now of course, since this is the upgraded M edition of the S1000RR, it does have these upgraded billet parts which do feel really nice to the hand. Paint quality on this bike, even though my S1000RR, my black one, had really bad paint in my opinion, the white on this BMW S1000RR does look much nicer compared to the paint on my black one. I know I've had my problems with BMWs in the past, but the build quality and the initial impression with the quality that you feel like to the touch and your impression of it in person, they are built very well, and I have to give that to BMW. This is the cheapest Ducati motorcycle that you can buy on the market today. What's interesting about this Ducati in particular is how it was built. This is not a Ducati V4 or a Ducati Diavolo where build quality was the number one thing that they're worried about. The number one thing that this bike was built with in mind was weight. It is designed to be as light as possible. And so some of the trade-offs of that are there are these really lightweight plastics that Ducati uses pretty much throughout the entirety of the motorcycle. It's most commonly seen on these fairings, which is more of a dirt bike plastic rather than regular motorcycle plastics that you would see on a BMW. If you could see underneath the stickers that I have placed on this bike, you would see that it's all unpainted red plastic. And the benefit to that is it's all super lightweight. This bike only weighs 330 pounds stock. And with that exhaust on there, it's probably lightened it up even a little bit more. So yes, this specific Ducati is not really going to be able to hold a candle to the quality of the BMW over there. I'm defending my Supermoto a little bit just because, yes, it's cheaper, but it still is made with quality parts. It just has the intention of trying to be as lightweight as possible. It wouldn't make sense to build this bike with a bunch of hardened steel and built aluminum that the BMW has over there. Plastic is going to be lighter than anything, and that's why the majority of this bike is made out of plastic. It still does have really high quality aluminum parts, like the swing arm is made out of aluminum. And what's really fascinating, even though this is actually technically a steel framed motorcycle, which is usually something that you would see on a cheaper motorcycle, the reason that this bike has a steel frame as opposed to an aluminum one is because it's advertised as a wheelie bike. And so having a steel frame is more useful than an aluminum one, because with an aluminum frame like the BMW has over here, if you slam down too hard on a wheelie, you do run the risk of cracking the frame. With a steel frame, that's virtually impossible. The absolute worst case scenario, you're likely going to bend the frame, but even that is very hard to do. Plus, combined with the large suspension travel on the Supermoto, it's basically going to become impossible to bend the frame on this bike. Basically, this is just a really long way of saying that it's really hard to compare the quality of these bikes because they're made to do different things. If this bike came with an aluminum frame, a very high quality aluminum frame, despite the fact that it was very high quality, you run the risk of breaking it when coming down from a wheelie. So there's just things that this bike cannot have. In terms of technology, both of these bikes actually have pretty much all of the same exact technology. This bike comes with wheelie control, traction control, all of that stuff. Of course, I have everything turned off, but it does have adjustable ABS modes that you can turn off. Everything on this bike is pretty adjustable, very similar to the S1000RR, which I know a lot of these modes can get very confusing, but yes, it has all of the same power modes that my Ducati has. So long story short, it's basically the same conclusion that we came to earlier. It's different strokes for different folks. If you want a cheaper motorcycle, there's nothing wrong with that. You're gonna get pretty much the same exact experience that you're gonna get out of a motorcycle like this. However, if you have the interest of really pursuing motorcycles and taking it to the next level, yes, some of those extra amenities like heated grips and all the technology can help you in the long run. With that being said, I hope you guys don't feel pressured to go out and spend $25,000. I hope you don't even feel pressured to go out and buy a motorcycle that's $13,000. There are tons of bikes on Marketplace, anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 that you can still have plenty of fun on, just as much fun on a bike like this as a bike like that. Just make sure whatever you buy, you're enthusiastic about and maintain very well. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you guys stick around for the next one, and I will see you guys tomorrow.